All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will start the meeting of the Economic Development Commission for May the 27th, 2020. It's now 7:07. We have a quorum. In fact, we have a quorum plus one. And so we'll start with the roll call. And we have Richard Bedford, Trevina Adams, Ron Johnson, Eddie Miners, and myself. Possibly to come at a later time will be Chelsea Noose or Chelsea Clark, I guess, and Paul Booth. Chelsea said she would be late, but I never heard anything from Paul, so I don't know what his status is. Okay, so we have the roll call. Next, we have the minutes from the last meeting. And I'm hoping everyone has had a chance to read them. And I asked that you call me with any corrections prior to the meeting. I didn't get any calls. So anybody have anything to mention about the minutes?
No.
No changes.
Okay. For the purpose of this meeting, which is virtual, we can all see each other on the screen. I see everybody's picture on my monitor, and I hope you all see the rest of us. But we're going to try to conduct this meeting fairly quickly because we're limited to an hour by Waycross. So we want to move right along with the agenda. We have the roll call. We have the minutes. I'll like a motion to approve the minutes as written. And if you're going to say something, please raise your hand. I'll see you and identify you. Ed Miners?
Motion.
Motion made. We need a second. Ron
Wait a
Johnson
second.
seconds. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, it sounds unanimous. No dissents. The chairman's report. It's been 3 months since our last meeting. I have talked to just about everybody on the commission at least once, some of you several times. Everybody seemed to be fine last week when I talked to all of you, or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry. I hope everybody's still in the same position. We don't have any sickness, do we, amongst the commission?
No.
Everybody pretty good. Thank goodness for that. Since January, the only things I have to report on is the job fair, which was conducted on February the 11th. And that was initiated by a suggestion with Ron Johnson way back in September. We had multiple meetings with our own steering committee as well as with Winton Woods School District. We decided after a number of meetings that the best thing for us to do was meld in with the Winton Woods School District and join their job fair, which they've been doing for years. And that was pretty satisfactory. They had around 90 booths altogether, or tables, I should say, altogether. We had contributed 12 businesses from Forest Park that were gotten through the EDC or the Forest Park Chamber of Commerce. There were, in addition to those 12, there were 19 from Forest Park altogether. 3 other ones had business in Forest Park, but they're not a member of the, they're not part of Forest Park themselves. They're owned out of Indianapolis by, I think it's Advanced Corporation, which owns a McDonald's at Omniplex Drive. Also, Mercyplex was there. They actually are not in Forest Park, but they do a lot of work with Forest Park, volunteering and things like that. The job fair went very well. There were 50 college tables there. The furthest college that I know of outside the city was from Alabama. And they were well represented. They had a lot of literature to pass out. The Forest Park Police Department, the Forest Park Fire Department, and 4 branches of the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines were there. Also, Chelsea Noose, one of the commissioners, had her table there for a new enterprise within Forest Park, Small Business Association of the African American community. She's trying to entice other African American businesses into Forest Park. So she had a table there, and she had a number of people inquire about that endeavor. So that all went fairly well. We all think it was a success. Diane happened to be there. Diane, if you'd like to comment anything on the job fair, please feel free to do so. You're muted, Diane. I guess you know that.
In the interest of time, I think we should move on.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing is, for those that may not have seen it, City Manager Don Jones, I don't know when the last one was, but I watched one about 2 weeks ago. He has a video on the internet that's called, I think it's Off the Cuff. Am I right? Paul, is it called Off the Cuff?
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
you can get to it from the Forest Park website, City of Forest Park website. And it was pretty interesting, giving us an update on what's happening in Forest Park. During new business, Diane, I'd like you or Chelsea to make a comment about the elections. So I'll wait till then to get to you on that, all right? Okay. Moving along, that's all I have for the chairman's report. Council liaisons report, Councilman Herbie.
Council was on hiatus instead of during the summer from mid-March through mid-May. We did have one special meeting, and we have had one regularly scheduled meeting since May 18th. We have nothing on the first Monday in June because there's no agenda items. But we are starting work on the tax budget, which is the first step in the budgeting process. You wanted me to talk about elections. These are primary elections. I don't know that I need to go into those. The tax levy for the busing passed, and the tax levy for the school district went down. And I think that the city, who had planned on probably putting something on the ballot this year, is probably not going to do that given the state of the economy.
Okay. One more thing on the elections, because I work as a polling official, and we were totally set up to vote on March 17th. Well, the 16th we set up, and we were there till 9:30 at night, and then they canceled the vote. And we were supposed to vote on June the 2nd. And this is where you might update me, Diana, because I was looking for a call, and I called the Bureau of Elections yesterday, thinking they might be open. And I haven't had a response yet, but I went out to their website, and it says official count certified Board of Elections for 2020. And it showed those results that you were talking about. But I'm wondering how they got those results. Was that all absentee ballots or what? Can you enlighten us?
It included absentee ballots and walk-ins that were done up until Election Day. And then initially, the governor said not to go ahead with the election. But he could only make a recommendation. It had to be done legally. And there was the plan was to file a lawsuit on behalf of some voters. That was kicked out by the court. That's when the health director stepped in and declared it a health emergency and canceled it. The legislature, the governor could do nothing. He had to rely on the legislature. The legislature stepped in and set an all-mail ballot that was due at April 28th, and it was the April 28th elections that was certified. So it was all absentee ballot walk-ins up until election day, and then mail-in absentees after that.
Thank you very much for that information, Diana. Any other report, Diana? Anything else you want to talk about? Okay. The director's report, Mr. Brem?
First, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And I appreciate everyone volunteering their time. In your packet was a written report that includes all the information. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'm
on
sorry.
those.
Excuse my interruption, Paul. Paul, excuse my interruption. If one of the commissioners,
I want to go ahead and just highlight a couple of things as you then move forward.
Paul, what I wanted to interject here, if one of the commissioners has a dog in the room, could they please mute their computer so we don't hear the dog? Thank you very much, because I can't hear Paul talking whenever the dog's barking. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry to interrupt. Chip, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Paul,
'Cause I can't, Paul is frozen on my screen and I can't hear him.
okay, I think he's back. Paul, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you had frozen up.
Now
for-
we can.
Chip, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
The incentive projects are moving forward, so that's Faxon, Hope Bridge, and HHS. Those projects represent $2.3 million in investment in the community and 225 jobs. The Emeritus project is moving forward. They've already started some of that work. That's a $7 million project and 600 jobs. We have one project in the pipeline that's kind of connected to that Emeritus project. If it comes to fruition, that would be another 400 jobs. What we're seeing is that the office market is tending to hold stable, is actually doing okay. The industrial market is still doing fine for us. We do have, obviously, we're keeping an eye on small business development. I think if this crisis has hit anyone in particular hard, it's been small business and all entrepreneurs and small business owners. So we're trying to find ways that we can help them out. We've been trying to connect them to county resources and state resources. But those are the biggest challenges. Retail has obviously been hit very hard. I'm sure all of you have seen the news with J. Crew and JCPenney and others declaring bankruptcy. We just saw a list today of about they had at-risk retailers, and there was a list literally of about 6 different companies, retailers. So retail in particular is been hit quite hard. That may, in some ways, open some opportunities up for us. As all of you know, one of the main components of our program is the redevelopment of underdeveloped or underperforming retail properties. It is possible that given the current environment, maybe this gives us a chance to move forward, including some high profile opportunities, and I think we all know which one that is, to maybe finally see some redevelopment of some of these retail properties that just aren't performing anymore. So in all honesty, we're doing well. I know in the second item of my report, we talk about the COVID response. In your report are links to both the county and state sites for business to identify sources or pots of money or grants or loans to help them get through this process. I encourage you to connect them with those websites. The state site in particular is very helpful. www.hcdc.com is the county website. They have a separate page that is set up for business assistance programming. And the city itself is looking at its own efforts to put together some type of a business assistance program that's still in development. I think we're trying to come up with something that's going to be relevant, substantive, and that will actually help people out. And it's not just lip service. So we're trying to put together a program. And Councilor Herbie, I anticipate we'll probably have something for City Council in the near future to talk about with that. Obviously, whenever we talk about these programs, the city is not unaffected by the current crisis. As you know, we were just coming into tax season. Councilor Herbie mentioned the tax budget being put together for next year, but obviously this is the time of year when we see a lot of money actually coming in to help fund the city services that we do. Police, fire, public works, everything. This is the time of the year when we're collecting a lot of those resources. Obviously, some of that was pushed back and delayed. So we're trying to get our arms around exactly what that means for the city as well. We certainly don't want to do something that we can't follow through on the backside. But for the most part, I think we're holding steady. I sat in on a couple of webinars during the past several months where we talked about economic forecast. I think it is safe to say that we are going to see a steady, but albeit it will be a slow recovery out of this situation. I don't think that we're going to see a quick recovery. This is probably going to take months, if not a couple of years, to actually unwind. Unemployment in the state of Ohio today was reported at 16.8%. To give you an idea, unemployment before this crisis hit, we were probably under 4%. So now some of those people, as we begin to reopen the economy, I think we'll see some of that employment come back. I don't think it's as necessarily as dire as those statistics indicate, but this is going to probably be a little bit of a long road to get back to where we were. Councilor Herbie?
Just piggybacking on what you were saying about money coming in slowly. As you know, the federal government pushed back the tax deadline to mid-July, and the state of Ohio and the city have also done the same thing. So the tax deadline has been moved back in accordance with the federal move.
Thank you, Council Lady. Okay, Paul, do you have anything else under your report?
No, that would conclude my report, and happy to answer any questions.
Does any commissioner have any questions? Please raise your hand if you do. There being none, we'll move on to unfinished business. Paul, Economic Development Assistance Center concept, did you just mention about that?
Yeah, what we are going to be doing is we're pursuing outside sources of funds to potentially work. As all of you know, the Hamilton County Library is going to be doing an expansion of the Parkdale branch. That project will probably occur, I think we're probably looking at 2022 at this point. But we are working with Hamilton County Library on a potential of trying to find ways that we can partner with them on this project. I think it gives us a great opportunity in that Northland corridor to do some things. And one of the things we're looking at is a satellite business assistance center. This will probably be done with several regional partners. We've just opened discussions, but our thought is maybe we could work with the African American Chamber of Commerce, READY, HCDC, a number of other entities to try to pull together resources and create a one-stop shop. This would not only serve Forest Park, but could actually be something that would be of service to this entire northern I-275 corridor. It's a unique concept. It's still in the talking and planning stages, but I wanted to make all of you aware of that we're working on this project. I think it's an exciting concept, and hopefully we will be able to find the resources we need to make this happen. The second item under unfinished business is the Business Recognition Awards. again, as we talked, the city is not unaffected by the current healthcare crisis and its financial impacts. We have started to look at ways that we can cut back on some of the resources at the city. Councilor Herbie, I think this is something that the city manager is going to be sharing with City Council. One of the items that I think we may see, not only for budget, but just for planning purposes, is the 2021 Business Recognition Breakfast. We will probably have a discussion at our next DDC meeting as to whether or not we want to postpone that until maybe the first quarter of 2021 versus having it this year in the fall, as we usually do. There's a number of reasons for that, not the least of which is right now you still can't have public gatherings. So it's difficult to plan an event like this when we're not sure if we're still going to be able to have a public gathering with 100 to 125 people. So we could either postpone it, or we could go ahead and present the 2020 awards and do it at some type of a presentation, perhaps at a council meeting at the end of the year, some type of an event, but it would not be the breakfast. This is, I think it's something we probably should just plan on. I don't think we're going to be able to hold the breakfast in 2020. It's whether or not we want to postpone that event, have it early and ahead, present the awards for this year, and then move on next year.
Thank you, Paul. We conducted the breakfast in February, what, 3 years ago? 4 years ago? When did we do that in February?
That's correct. We actually did conduct it. Yes. Yes, we did. A couple of years ago, we did it in February.
Okay. I was always a proponent of having it at the end of the year rather than next year, but I mean, with all the circumstances at hand, I guess it might be a good idea to wait until next year. By the way, I put a call in for WWLW. I thought about asking Curtis Fuller, the newscaster who's been in Cincinnati for ages, to host the next breakfast. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll present it to him in such a manner that we may not have it in the fall and probably have it in the spring, February or so, late winter. But I thought we'd get a head start on getting a MC for that event as soon as we could, just in case we did have it in November or December, like in the past. Anybody have any questions? Trevina? Okay. All right. New business, redevelopment incentive. Paul?
Yes, we have two projects to discuss this evening. These are two new projects. One is relatively small, but the other one's actually, I think, rather substantial. And I'll go through these for you. The first project, we're working with a forest park manufacturing company. This is somebody that's been with us since the mid-'80s. So it's a good company with a long history here in Forest Park. They could invest $1.5 to $2 million to acquire a new building. They're actually leasing a building now. As many of you know, this is kind of our bread and butter. We have companies that lease space with us, and we kind of bring them along, cultivate them, work with them, and then hopefully they either buy a building and own a building, or they build a new building. And if you look at a lot of our new construction projects over the years, you know, EQM, Cincinnati Testing Lab, you know, Geotechnology, Fry Fastening, Magna, these are all companies that we had a history with before they actually built their buildings. So we're working with this company to accomplish that. They have 30 full-time employees and would add another 10 to 20 jobs as a result of the project. They would also invest another $1 million in machinery. So this project could be close to $3 million when we're done. We are working with them, and I anticipate that we are going to be taking a recommendation to council. This project is eligible for a redevelopment grant. I anticipate that we will be looking at a grant, probably somewhere in the ballpark of $15,000 to $20,000 or $15,000 to $25,000, somewhere in that ballpark. And then we will also be looking at a rebate of the withholdings for 1 year that the company reports to the city. In total, this entire incentive package will probably be between $50,000 and $60,000 payable over 3 years. So again, when you look at the fact that we're leveraging our investment with $3 million from the company and saving anywhere between 40 and 50 jobs in the community, it makes a lot of sense for us to work on this. This is the kind of project we make our living off of. So, I wanted to share it with all of you. I anticipate this will move rather quickly, so we may not have another EDC meeting before we're able to talk about it. As you know, I usually like to have more specifics for you in terms of the exact recommendation, but we're probably looking at an incentive package payable over 3 years that would be somewhere in the ballpark of the total incentive, combination of grant and combination of the withholdings credit rebate. We'd probably look at $50,000 to $60,000 of an incentive to leverage this $3 million project.
Sounds good, Paul. Sounds good.
The second project is a little bit smaller, but I actually am kind of excited about this project. We have a coffee company that is a retail coffee company. It is not a major chain. It's locally owned and operated. They have 5 or 6 retail shops right now. They're based in another community. They are not leaving the other community, but they have grown to the point where they need a separate operation to do their coffee roasting and distribution out of. So they have identified a vacant building on Northland Boulevard that they are looking to purchase, and then they would move this operation into that building. They're looking at $500,000 for the acquisition and renovation of the building, and another $200,000 on machinery and equipment. It's not a major job generator. It's 7 full-time, 4 part-time employees initially, and they would create another 3 to 5 jobs as a result of the project. However, this is a company that I think has a potential to grow with us. And we're looking at an incentive to help them. It does, obviously, because they're looking at a vacant building on Northland. It qualifies for our redevelopment program. Because we don't have a big payroll, what we are looking at is a one-time redevelopment grant of $5,000 to help the company make this move. I don't think this is a make or break on this deal, but I think we want to get our foot in the door, help this company ease that transition in, and establish a good foothold with them. This is, again, as all of you know, this is how we, kind of do, have our success in Forest Park. We get these companies when they're young, when they're growing, and then we keep them here. So this is an opportunity for us to do it with this company. So for both of these, I would recommend that the commission might want to consider passing resolutions in favor of both of these recommendations. Again, our resolutions are not binding upon council. Council makes these decisions, but I wanted to bring it to the attention of the commission to get your buy-in on it and to let you know that we're moving forward with these projects. And again, because of the uncertainty we have right now and kind of the new normal we're all operating under, we're kind of moving in a little bit different fashion than what we typically do. But I would suggest that we go ahead and pass resolutions in support of these projects.
And you want to do that at tonight's meeting, Paul, at this time?
If we could.
Okay, I don't see any problem with that. The chair would entertain a motion by one of the commissioners to accept the recommendation of the EDC chairman, the EDC director, to provide a grant from the city to enable these 2 companies to go forward with their plans. And Paul, you will give us more details at the next meeting, more specific
Yes.
details.
Yes.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that, make a
Go ahead.
motion that we pass the resolution to give the grant to those two new businesses. Is that the appropriate language?
That's,
Yes.
Paul will sweeten it up for us.
I would say the redevelopment incentives.
And I'll go ahead and
Redevelopment,
second
okay.
that motion.
It's been moved by Ron Johnson and seconded by Trevina Adams that the EDC director is given permission to move ahead with the redevelopment assistance, and he'll present that to council for approval. Any other discussion on that matter?
I have one question about that matter. Is that we are looking at that development to take place within the next year? Like that won't be something that we do in 2020? Okay, thank you.
No, these are both projects, Trevina, that would happen very quickly. I would assume that we would see both acquisitions occur probably in the next 3 months of the
Oh, wow.
buildings.
Okay,
The
that's
two
fast.
companies they would move quickly.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Yeah,
Very
I
good.
second that. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have, I didn't hear Mr. Miners or Mr. Bedford.
That's an aye.
Okay, we have 4 ayes, 5 ayes. So we have a unanimous decision, Paul, that you can make the appropriate recommendation to council so we can move on with these projects.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Under new business also, I wanted to ask Ed or Richard if they can give us any input, because they might have, since they own businesses, and also, I'm talking about food industry. I drove by today, we were out getting medicine for my wife. I drove by Outback and it says dining room open. And I drove by Skyline Chili and it says dining room open. Can either Richard or Ed tell us anything about restaurants being allowed open at this time? Are they allowed open now? And what percentage of clientele can they have and so forth?
Well, yeah, you can dine in like during 50% of capacity right now. You still got to practice social distancing inside the restaurant. So if that means like moving tables around and things like that, that's what you have to do to be able to dine in. There's not 100% dine in though, but far as capacity of your occupancy of your building.
Okay, so if you have a capacity of 100 people at your restaurant, you can have 50 in, but they have to sit every other table or something like that.
Right.
They actually haven't said that it's a percentage of occupancy. Rather, it's just the amount of making sure that you can ensure the distancing. So you can go more than 50% occupancy if you have a way of being able to keep people spread apart. That's the most important piece of it. And then there's lots of guidelines that they're doing about sanitation and a lot of best practices, but not a whole lot of you have to do this, which is kind of surprising.
Okay, now Frisch's on their marquee says June 6th, their open dining room.
Yep. So you were allowed to open the dining rooms Thursday of last week.
Okay.
But like my Springdale store, we're not opening that dining room until June 1st. So
Okay.
we're just part of it is just some of the staff with recalling, some retraining of people, and then the preparation of getting the facilities the way that they need to be to get them open.
So some LaRosa's might be opening tomorrow and some might be opening a week or two from now.
That's correct. I believe there are 8 dining rooms that are open presently, and I think another 19 open on the 1st. And then there's going to be a handful of other ones that'll open thereafter. For instance, the Seven Hills location that I have on Hamilton Avenue, we're going to delay that one opening past June 8th because the dining room and the lobby are so small. We can't distance and get enough tables in the dining room to make it safe and to keep people appropriately spread out. So that's one that we'll probably kick down the road a little bit further. And I know some restaurants are doing that if they have very, very small dining rooms.
Okay, interesting. I know different states have different regulations. I have a very good friend who passed away just this last week. And their church this coming Saturday is not allowed to hold a funeral, but they're going to have a service at the funeral at the cemetery, but only 25 people are allowed at gravesite. Anyone else has to remain on the roadway to the burial site, and they have to stay by their cars. So our church in Liberty Township is only going to have openings for parishioners to come on June 6th, but only 100 people will be allowed in a 1,500 seat church. After 100 people, they're going to turn people away. So, different locations have different rules. It's tough to keep up with them.
Yeah, it's truly, I mean, it's kind of federalism at its best. Each state is being able to make the decision that makes the most sense for what they have going on in their communities. What's going on in New York is completely different than what's going on in Wyoming. So nobody should have to have the same standards. It really is what makes sense for your state, your county, and even more specifically, your municipality.
I agree. Anything else under new business?
I have nothing further.
Okay, general discussions. Chelsea Noosh had something here. I wish she'd have called me. I could have presented it to her. She had something, an update on the Minority Business Initiative, but I'm sure she can give us that at the next meeting or send us an email relative to that information. Oh, we moved along pretty good tonight.
Yes, and I will touch base with Councilor Clark and see what she
Coming in broken up,
has.
Paul.
And if there is any kind of a written report from Chelsea, we'll make sure that that's distributed to everybody.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have anything? Anyone else going twice? Anyone else? Yes, sir. Somebody said, Ron?
How is remember we were talking about doing the 2025 initiative? I think Paul, Ed, and Ed, you guys are going to get together. Is that something that's still on the table, or we're just sort of tabling that for now?
I think it's on the back burner because of all the COVID and things like that. But yeah, that 5-year vision that you're talking about, that was presented back in November, December. And I think we discussed that at a meeting and we decided we'd move that into the first, second quarter this year. But then COVID hit. But I think it's something that we still need to discuss as a commission. And I don't know if Paul's done anything in background timing on it or not. Do I see Trevina? Do you have a question? No.
Ed and Ron, I would suggest that we probably want to push this back until next year. And I'll come up with a new timetable for us to start that 5-year planning process, because I think one of the things is we need to get our hands around exactly what we're going to have coming out of this crisis. I've seen 3 different scenarios. We were discussing the economic forecast today, a group of commercial real estate developers and brokers, and there were 3 different scenarios being discussed. A mild impact with a faster recovery, a moderate impact with a little bit slower recovery, and then hopefully the one we won't see, which is a second recurrence of this in the fall, and a more damaging impact of this crisis where we would see a much longer recovery even then and a steeper curve to climb up out of. So until we know exactly what we're looking at, I think we'll know a lot more by the end of the year, and then we can launch this planning process and kind of work with it up based off of whatever that new reality is that we have to deal with coming out of 2020, and begin making a plan in 2021 that really addresses what our needs are going to be at that point.
All right, thank you, Paul. Hey, something else just interjected in my mind here. And I think it may affect some of the families of some of the commissioners. I don't know if anyone saw this yesterday or not, but the drug companies and the insurance companies were at a White House meeting yesterday, and they came up with an agreement which has been proclaimed by President Trump to be in effect yesterday. Well, it's made into law yesterday, but it won't be effective for about 2 or 3 months till they get all the proceedings worked out. But people with diabetes, and they had 3 different people on that made commentary on it. They said, I've been paying $400, $500 a month for the last 6 years for insulin. These companies, Eli Lilly was there, Humana Insurance was there, and a couple other companies, they've agreed to reduce the cost of diabetic medicine to $35 a month maximum. So I think some of our families on the commission might be affected by that. And I don't know if you heard the news or not, but I know my friend has it, and he said, God, I can't believe this. I'm going to save 300 and some dollars a month.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think that's really good that people with illnesses are being helped with their medical bills. I'm sorry, that was my phone. I should have muted it. That was one of the election commissioners calling me back to give me an update, I guess. Anybody else have any other new business? All right, Paul, unless you have anything else, I think we can adjourn the meeting. I want to thank.
No, I do not.
Oh, you do have something else?
No, I do not.
Okay, I want to thank the commissioners for their attention and help in expediting the meeting tonight so we could get this on in our time frame for Waycross. So if nothing else, if anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to call me or email me. And hopefully, we will meet a month from now at the city building. And Paul, you'll keep me abreast of that, right? Whether they open up the city building or not.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, and thank you to Waycross TV for putting this program, for recording it for us. And good night to all, and everybody please stay healthy.
You too.